you'll notice we've got the names accurately represented on the slide this time. Anyone, honestly, feel free to kick it off here and throw your hand up if you've got any questions for us about any of the capabilities Google has announced or any of the camera technologies that we've heard about. Do not tell me you just want to get to drinks this quickly, please. We've got plenty of time. Okay, here's one from Jeffrey Martin.
Hi. What will be the rules around publishing Street View in countries where Google's not currently publishing any Street View, such as China, for example?
So our policy on contributions is pretty easy to represent. We support published content in any country except China. And that is because of the laws in the country there. So anywhere else in the world, if you want to publish, you should respect the privacy requests of individuals. You should respect local law. But Google is not going to try to actively stand in your way in any other country in the world. Other questions? There's one in the front. Looks like we're setting up a microphone as well.
Hello, I'm Tommy from Lifestyle, based in Tokyo. I was in India, actually, and I saw many, undeveloped road, Mumbai and Delhi, many places there. So I'd like to ask, Rob of IRAP.
Great.
Yep.
Greg, maybe you could come up and field the question? Please, thank you.
And I'm really interested about the situation on your database. What about the situation in India and also Japan? If in terms of the quality of the road, like 5-star or 3 stars?
Yeah, it's a good question. We do a lot of work in India at the moment, and including in Mumbai. We're working there at the moment. Broadly speaking, the standard of road when it comes to safety is much better in Japan than it is in India. India faces some incredible challenges, not just in terms of the road design, but the complexity of the way that the roads are used. You can drive along a road in India and see trucks and buses and cars and bicycles and motorcycles and elephants and people everywhere. So it's much more complex.
I saw pig.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we are working very closely with the government in India and development banks to try and accelerate their uptake of safe infrastructure. And this sort of analysis, it's really, really important to them, partly because they don't always have very good crash data. So they don't actually have very good metrics often about how their roads are actually performing. So we have to try and find some other metrics that we can use quickly to accelerate the uptake.
Thank you so much.
Next question, please. Here's one. I'm Florian Frey with the International VR Photographers Association.
I just wanted to ask if the 3D data is only used for transitions or if there is kind of further plans, since this is my background. Like, I'm really interested
Do you guys mind if I field
like
this one?
models or other stuff.
We sort of deliberated on this one. I think a lot of folks have this impression that 3D, it's a reasonable impression that 3D connotes stereo. And every one of these VR-capable systems that you saw today is capable of that type of output. Street View today does not support that type of output. I think it's accurate to represent our use of that content as 2.5D in that we use that geometry for these very immersive transitions, and we're going to continue to work on the fidelity of that. We are certainly very keen on looking at what the future of Street View will look like in more and more immersive capacities. We're committed to these standards being something that you'll continue to see us get behind in years to come. And so we decided to sort of adopt this VR Ready label a little bit early because you'll continue to see us invest in this over the next couple of years. We're not ready to talk about anything else in terms of what that might support in the future. It's a great question. Here's one in the middle from Benjamin.
So in terms of Time Machine and events and places, I've heard reference to pesky people being in the shots that we're putting online. But talk to me more about events and locations that host events, stadiums and things like that. Do you see room inside of Street View for a Time Machine about concerts that happen at that place, or, you know, for example, Christmas markets in Germany, things like that? Tell me more about events versus geographic locations.
I love the idea of Christmas markets. I think that there are a lot of cases where today, especially if you look at first-party Street View specifically, the imagery was captured at a moment that doesn't necessarily reflect the character of the place. There's an example going around, I think a lot of folks hold as canonical here, where a busy marketplace in Barcelona was captured when everything was closed, and you just have shutters with graffiti on them rather than vibrant shops. So I'm excited about the potential of Time Machine, opening it up to user-generated Street View to solve this problem and solve the other problems that come with it of, when you have several events a year or several events a month in a specific space, how do you pick just one, right? Because you can't. So it's kind of a vague way of saying yes to your question. I'm not, I think there's a lot more to consider for commercial events like shows or sporting events or what have you. But for the Christmas market example, that seems to be a pretty clear-cut yes. Anything you want to add?
I think this is, for us, it's just early stages. The world is extremely dynamic. The world does not exist as a single representation. Everything Stafford just said, I completely agree with. I think that, if we're mutually successful in this quest to help map the world spaces, it will put more pressure on Google to look at other ways to explore the world temporally, not just spatially.
I think another really exciting thing here is that most of the technology that you saw today doesn't just publish to Street View. It also publishes to YouTube or Facebook. And I think that as the world adopts live streaming of major events in 360 and in VR, it only helps all of us by growing the ecosystem further. And I'm excited about things that Street View can add in 2018 and 2019 and beyond. But there are also lots of places to start today.
Yeah, I mean, just another thought about how detailed you're going to get on the Time Machine. You take a place like the Nuremberg Ring, a famous concert, Rock am Ring there. I could definitely see lots of interest in looking at years past, so people compare events and things like that. Is there any thought of that in the infrastructure development, or are we just dealing with the road looked different 10 years ago today? How much detail are we going to expect out of the Time Machine?
Well, I think we mentioned yesterday that the granularity today is 3 months. We're not actively looking at making that finer grained yet, but let's see how much we use and contribute over the next year or two. And I think we'll be ready to respond if there's a great demand for showing a difference in imagery on a weekly basis.
And if it ends up making Google money, then I think there's a much stronger argument. So, for example, people are coming to Google and seeing all these different time frames that encourage them to go to certain places, then that's something that is possibly compelling.
Yeah, I think that your interest and your technology are really going to drive this space forward, right? If you look back, there was no reason for Time Machine to ever have more than a 3-month granularity, right? But now that we have interest from folks like you and we have cameras from folks like you, you can imagine something where maybe there's a space like Las Vegas where it's important to have it at night, right? And that's not something we ever thought about with the Time Machine, and I'm not promising, by the way, that we will, but I think it opens up an interesting space for us to explore further.
And I just want to clarify something. I agree with Jackie that it's important to show that it has the potential for impact, but we don't base our decisions on whether or not it makes us money. We base our decisions on whether or not it helps you in a dramatic way, in a significant way. And if it does, that tends to also be worthwhile for Google. We've got Dan Smigrod in the front.
Dan Smigrod, with the We Get Around Network Forum. With so many camera announcements today that seem dependent on the API, can the camera still launch with the API in beta?
Yes.
Could you expand on that? I don't know how to ask the question about what happens if the camera manufacturers want to come out in summer or third quarter and the API is still evolving, changing.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go beyond a one-word answer. So we are targeting a Q2 launch of the API to leave beta. I'm not promising that, but that's our goal. We have worked with the existing trusted testers of the API to help them launch software, even though the API remains in a beta state, and we've ramped up our infrastructure to handle that increased traffic. If you are a camera manufacturer or a software partner that's interested in doing that and haven't already, then feel free to work with us and feel free to kind of stage this to a point that you're comfortable, right? So if it makes sense for you to start with a beta program so that your users understand what they're getting into and you find that to be very successful, you're not facing any issues and it seems good to go, then feel free to take the next step.
Let me reframe the question. Our community is interested in buying cameras that have been announced, and they're trying to make some decisions based on, oh, this company said they're coming out with the Street View Ready camera in summer, but this company's doing third quarter. There seems to maybe a disconnect in terms of timing. So
I would say it's all actually been pretty consistent. I haven't heard anything, and I may be wrong here, but I don't think I've heard anything earlier than late June. And I have heard very few things that are further out than late September. And so that's kind of that sweet spot. And this is my chance to take a soapbox for a second and just say what we've just worked through over the last 2 days is extremely ambitious, not just for each of the manufacturers, but for Google. And we're going to be in this with our sleeves rolled up for the next 6 months to work through it. But you have to bear with us over the course of the next 6 months. There will be things that we don't anticipate at the moment, and we're doing our best to anticipate everything. But I think if we all go into this knowing that 4, 5, 6 months from now, these products are out there, the workflows are established and refined, that's what really excites me. That's the kind of time frame I think we should all be expecting.
It feels like maybe there's a little bit of an undercurrent in the question that the API is maybe a second-class citizen to the app. And I do want to clarify that that's not the case. Everything that I demoed yesterday in the app is built on top of the API. And so given that we're looking at a very immediate time frame for launching the app, that should give you some confidence in our ability to do the same for graduating the API from beta. Jackie and I both work on the app as well as the API. It's one team, and we see the API users not as second-class citizens, but in fact capable of building even better products than we do in the first-party app.
thank you.
Got a question? Go ahead,
just really
Jackie.
quickly, additionally, so we are working as hard as we can on the published API. But you also saw a lot of these cameras provide functionality outside of the published API. And I think that's, as Stafford mentioned, that's part of what's so exciting is that it's not just to put this stuff on Google. So there's still a lot of good stuff coming out.
It's an investment. It's an investment in the future of the medium. It's an investment in the company, as we saw from NC Tech earlier. I mean, I think this goes a little further than we would expect, but if you invest in some of these companies, you're getting involved in a life cycle where you may even be thinking about upgrading in the next couple of years, and there's nothing wrong with that. We need to get out in front of this. So I would discourage anyone from saying I'm going to sit back for a year and watch the dust settle, because you'll get left behind.
ATA from Thailand here. The question concerning the Street View technology with Google Indoor Maps and with the building with many levels, and also we take photos inside of the shopping mall. The both technology, when you place at the let's say the 5th floor, and you see the inside of the Street View, right? Can these two technology combine together, split the views, switch from one indoor maps into Street View? Can that technology happen?
I think I understood the question. If anybody is confident, then please answer it.
It sounded to me like it was a question about connecting indoor business data to first-party Street View.
Was that it? That's what I got.
Indoor maps.
Okay.
The floor plan of the shopping mall on every level, combining with the Google technology, Street View technology.
I'm not in a place right now to announce anything regarding indoor maps. I have received questions from a lot of you, the hardware partners who are working on generating floor plans, and that's interesting, and I'm happy to go back and talk to the indoor maps team, but right now I'm not at liberty to announce anything.
Thank you.
Got another one from Florian.
I just wanted to ask, Catherine mentioned that you could set the branding on the bottom of the sphere. Like, could you elaborate on how much and which rules? And also the second question, because you mentioned private spaces are not welcome. There is some, like, from what I read, from like homes that being rent for holidays. Like this case, this is kind of a half private, half.
I can speak directly to the policies. And so those are both excellent questions. So our official policy states that it states two things. Publicly inaccessible spaces cannot be published. And so that would traditionally include residential homes. We do carve out a very specific distinction for bed and breakfast style properties because the fine line between some of those and a hotel is sometimes indistinguishable. And so the way that our language states that is if it's a nightly rental property, then it's okay. If it's a longer term rental property, it is not okay. So nightly is the operative word there. If you're renting something for a week or a month, we consider that to be an apartment. There was another question and I lost it. Sorry.
It was regarding Adopt a Highway.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
So, by the way, that's his term, and I just love it. Adopt a Highway.
So I assume everybody, maybe this is an America-centric thing, but at least we have this concept where you can, you can go pick up trash alongside the highway, and then you get your name on the Adopt a Highway sign, so everybody sees your branding as they drive by. And we're thinking, well, why not apply a virtual model to this as well, where if you're willing to go and canvas an area, you should be able to brand those panos. 360 photos. So, yeah, a lot of chuckles here. So that's the idea behind Adopt a Highway.
Can we go a little further into some of the business dynamics?
And I think we should also talk about the specific policy around how much of that you're allowed to brand.
That's easy. It's the bottom 25% of the Equirect. That's your answer. So you can brand the bottom 25%. There's certain prohibited goods, like alcohol and various things, gambling, that are prohibited. But otherwise, you can promote whatever you want down in the bottom 25% of the image.
So if you're
you can't put like your email address. There's some specifics.
We'll have to check offline
we'll publish
on that.
The guidelines.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're, say, a pizza delivery company, why not put a camera on top of a little sign that goes on top of your car, right? If you have any sort of business where you think that business ties back to the map and users are likely to see your branding in Street View, then I see tremendous benefit here using Street View as sort of a grassroots advertising platform.
So you can imagine like a DMO, for example, engaging a trusted photographer with a Street View Auto-Ready camera to go out and actually canvas all the major roads in a certain district with a call to action at the bottom that says, you know, celebrate the Visit Florida's, you know, beach day or something down at the bottom. This, as a vehicle for promotion, can be promoting the photographer, it can be promoting the client, it could be promoting something else, like a cause, like saving lives. And so it's a lot of, I think, additional leverage for pros that might not be directly monetizing the actual roadway imagery, but can tie into this very recognizable asset. Next question, please. Got Thomas Ross.
Follow-up question, what is with updating those images? Like if you do this call of action for, I don't know, festival this summer with a date, and 6 months later this is outdated. Should people delete this, or is this a
it is an important distinction that this is baked into the pixels, right? We're not providing any sort of special overlay service. This is up to the provider. I think we've made it pretty clear that our goals are around refreshing imagery every month or every week or even more frequently than that. So I would hope that with all of your support, we don't actually find this case where imagery gets 6 months stale anymore. I wouldn't, I wouldn't go as far as to mandate that the user remove out-of-date call to actions from the bottom, but it's also not providing the same user benefit anymore if you leave it there. Right?
But it's kind of like along the same lines as Time Machine, where you get, there's still information there that's interesting.
But also like phone numbers or stuff that changes. But like if you allow those things, then people may want to update those pixels.
You can always remove your content, right?
Yeah,
As
sure,
the
no, but
publishing
if
party.
you have an image that's like 10 years ago, it was a nice image, but the photographer just wants to update the pixels.
Yeah.
So should
We-
it delete and
we don't have
re-upload?
infrastructure today for replacing the nadir of published imagery. I mean, it's certainly something Stafford and I have talked about, and it could end up on the roadmap in the next couple of years. It's a very valid observation. Just being candid with you, it's not something that we're actively working on at this time.
And know that, because you're asking from the software developer standpoint, if you were to take down those pictures and replace them with pictures that had a different cap, all of the view counts, really everything associated with the original would go away.
Next question, please.
All right, hey guys. As you know, I'm not too afraid to ask any questions. And I would normally have a few more questions, but I just want to take this opportunity to thank you guys. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Stafford. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, all the other contributors and all the other people behind the scenes for putting this on and being so accessible, not only to answer questions on stage, but here in person. As I was telling you earlier, Stafford, that I've been in business for a long time, and I've been to a lot of these shows, and I probably got more out of this show than probably any other event that I've been to. And if I did not come to the show, well, let's just say that by coming to the show, that not only is my business going to be light years ahead, but what my business is going to be able to contribute to the Google Street View is going to be light years ahead by me being here. So I wanted to thank you guys and thank all the people not being recognized that we didn't hear from just for putting this on. So appreciate it.
Fantastic observation. No, that was great.
Are you trying to make us cry on stage?
Yeah. I view many of you as my friends and have known many of you for a long time. And those that I don't know, I feel that we're very close acquaintances on the basis that we share such passion for the industry and the opportunity. So it's been a real pleasure working with you guys, many of you for the last few months and the rest of you over the last couple of days. I also want to take this chance, because I don't know that we'll get another one, to thank Wakaba, Mayumi, and Deb Schenker, who really led the efforts of putting this summit together. So and everyone else that supported them. One more round of applause, please, for those folks.
And if you got this much out of it, please share the word with your friends and colleagues. Take these lessons and share them.
Okay, back to the fun of the Q&A. We've got a little bit of time left. Are there any other questions? Here's one in the front from one of the gentlemen from Panaskin. Wojciech, right? Got it backward. Tom. Sorry.
So the question I have is, so the Street View cars, I think that's a pretty cool thing you guys are doing. What would you do in situations where you have two cars that ride through the same area? Does the newer photography take precedence over the older photography? What would you guys be planning on doing in that situation?
Our algorithms, we're not going to share exactly how the ranking works, but we've been transparent about the signals that we're looking into, right, and working on, which is quality, utility, recency, connectivity. Those are the primary signals that we're looking at. If all of those signals were to be identical in terms of their scores, then recency would take precedent. And so in that way, the map will continue to refresh itself.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to facilitate an environment here where as a contributor, all you think about is providing the highest quality content at the fastest update frequency possible, and that's how you get your stuff on the map.
More questions? Okay. There's one from Jeffrey Martin. Reminder, we didn't have Q&A for any of the manufacturers, and I know you had a chance to talk to them in the back, but if you have questions for them, this is another opportunity to do that.
How will you deal with sidewalks, especially on wide city streets where the sidewalk is maybe very, very far away from the street?
So we are trying to abstract ourselves away from this notion of streets anymore and just calling them paths. Paths, especially in Tokyo, I mean, this is kind of the signature example of a city where you need to distinguish between sidewalks and streets. We view them all as paths. There's a certain meter radius, and I don't remember off the top of my head, something like 5 meters, where we'll try to snap things together to a known path. And so in many cases, those paths will be parallel to the highway or the road, and in many cases, they'll be divergent. But if the sidewalk is really right up on the road, we don't think it's actually useful to the user to see 2 different lines. We will represent that as a single line on the map.
We're also rebranding it Google Path View.
That's good, yeah.
Just trying to keep you all awake, with bad
good.
jokes until cocktails.
There's certainly some benefit. I think one of the cases you can think of is accessibility, or are the paths available to wheelchair users and things like that. We're not there yet, but it's valuable.
What's really, really interesting to me is we saw all these examples in the last 2 days of these blue dots that start to go off the beaten path. They start to show new areas. And really, as of one of the advancements you're going to see in the next month or so that Stafford mentioned yesterday, which is generating those blue lines, we're going to really start to see the democratization of this representation of these paths in the world, right? Instead of seeing an inkling that there's a path there because you see a bunch of blue dots, you're going to see a blue line there when you drag Pegman over. And I'm hopeful that in the future there will be more ways that we take those cues from your contributions to really update the maps as well.
Can we get a microphone over here?
You're not getting any more sunglasses.
No, I don't need any more swag. Well, I take that back. But in regards to these lines being drawn, you mentioned yesterday that length has a factor here, how connected they all are versus also the beauty and quality and all those factors. If you have a path, for example, a hiking trail, and one of it covers 80% and the other one covers a different 80%, are you going to be co-combining those into one virtual line, or are we going to see lines slightly close to each other?
That's an excellent question. The blue lines are agnostic. They don't concern themselves with a single contributor. They concern themselves with where content exists. If you put yourself in the use of the consumer, when they drag Pegman over and they're suddenly looking at the blue lines, they're not thinking, I need to see the imagery that Benjamin shot. They're thinking, I want to see Street View in this area. And so when we drop you, what we're really saying is, at this exact intersection in space, what is the best experience that we can deliver for you? What's the most connected one? When you get to the end of that, one of those 80% collections that didn't entirely overlap the other 80%, and now you want to continue the path for the remaining 20%, that's where dynamic connections come into play. And I've discussed this a little bit with some of you offline. We have 2 notions that we describe really primarily internally at Google, which is auto connectivity. And in the Street View app, you'll see the auto connect option in the settings menu, which is your signal to us that you want Google to automatically connect your content to other 360 photos that you've collected. But that's different than dynamic connectivity. And dynamic connectivity says Google is going to connect your content to other content. Maybe not adjacent businesses. As Stafford's pointed out, we're going to be removing that sort of feature so that we're not moving you between walls anymore. But when you get to the end of that 80% on a path and you want to keep going, that dynamic connection should be there to show you that you can keep on moving down the path, and just you'll be seeing imagery from a different contributor at that point.
I think this is a good opportunity to reiterate the importance to the end user for all of the hardware and software partners in the room, of offering multiple upload flows to different publishing platforms, right? So Street View should be one of many experiences, so that yes, you can contribute to Street View, but if what you're also looking for is some way to have a long-standing artifact of the entire collect as a single artifact, then maybe you want to publish a hyperlapse to YouTube, right? So that you can say, oh yeah, this was my drive from San Francisco to New York, and you can watch the whole thing in an hour, right?
So let's say you've got some professionally produced content that covers 80% of a path, and then hobbyist Ben shows up and does the additional 20%. That means you'll see linkages between the professional content and the ability to walk into the casual content.
Yep. The only place where we are going to intentionally prohibit that type of connection through dynamic connectivity is from one business to another business. Otherwise, the whole point of this effort that we're embarking on is to make the world more connected at that ground scale. So we do want them to connect with one another.
So when you say businesses, you're saying when rights are transferred, or how you define a business?
As being, we use our own computer vision intelligence, and when we view these collections, we actually automatically designate them as being either indoor or outdoor, and being a path or being something other than a path. And so what we're looking at is two things that are indoors and that are not paths. And if those are both true between two collections, we will not be creating a dynamic connection between them.
This is not easy.
It says the smartest person on stage here, yes. It's
follow up that question, I'm confused about data.
Yeah.
Accept point clouds from Matterport, for
XDM
example?
The question, I'm just going to repeat the question. The question was regarding data, do we accept point clouds from Matterport at all?
Yes. So XDM supports two forms of geometry conveyance, point clouds and mesh. And we're happy to accept both. I should point out that Matterport's and some of these other capabilities, the fidelity of their geometry vastly exceeds what's possible for rendering at Street View across all of the different delivery clients that we have. So I think it's good to call that, again, 2.5D. We want to set the expectations that this is at a humble level of delivery today.
That's a really good point.
There's a question here in the middle. Sorry. Oh.
I should stop pointing at people because I don't have a microphone to give you.
Here, I'll go.
Hey, and by the way, if you don't get represented, you can run up to a mic and ask as well. So, but somebody obviously
I've got
does.
a mic, so I'll go ahead and go unless someone else is holding the mic.
Go for it.
With regards to the Street View Auto Ready, say with the iStar camera that we just got to learn about today, what will be the publishing or the approval turnaround to allow that 360 imagery to render on Street View and with maps?
Do you guys mind if I? It's multifaceted. It's moderation. It's also processing, right? Yeah. So, in terms of moderation, your imagery is auto-moderated within a minute. It is then manually moderated within 2 days. We publicly have stated this in the past. So those are the timelines. In terms of processing, though, I want to make sure I get the detail right, so I'm going to defer to Jackie because we just talked about this recently. Do you want me to say it, or do you want to say it? Because you probably.
So I do want to caveat
okay.
Everything we say right now because we have not yet done any video that comes from a car or bike, whatever. We've done.
Yes,
some experiments.
We've been testing with some of the cameras prototypes, but the final products that you guys just seen, some of us, we have yet to get our hands on it as well. So some of this is theoretical and will be figured out in the next couple of months.
And I definitely expect all of you to be testing our capabilities. And so, yes, right now we do want to get those frames into, so we're going to. Right now, we accept photos. Processing the frames from video is going to take a little bit longer.
I thought that we had originally said that we could say it was like 12 hours processing time.
Right. Well, you said a minute earlier. So
No.
Yeah.
Moderation and processing are very different, right? So moderation, a minute, and then 2 days later for human being, and processing 12 hours before you would see that experience up on Street View. So hopefully either one of those answers your question.
And note that over time, as we've embarked on previous efforts, these numbers have always gone down. So what you see this year, expect something faster next year.
think what we're striving for here is a workflow where if you're really inspired and you want to collect the 4 hours of Street View with an auto-ready camera every day, that you can do it every day. That's the bar that we've set for ourselves. There's a question in the middle from Joe.
And then
actually, I want to make sure that remote audiences get to hear you. Thanks.
Thank you. Good. There we go. This is very new. It's very exciting. Trying to get my head around everything so that I can prepare clients and do a lot of personal work myself, both to contribute and to help the local city and help some of these streets that don't exist right now. Just so I can understand, both with the ranking system of how the data will be implemented. The one thing that I can always tell them is that everything I'm creating will be part of my personal either Google Local Guides or Google Street View profile and able to be accessed through the link that I send them. So even if at worst case scenario I produce an amazing work and it does not quite land perfectly, someone else beats me to it, then I can still give them the link and they can self-publish it on their websites. And to me, that is the most amazing part of this, because when I used to do this many, many, many years ago, the server space alone was the barrier of entry, and the idea that Google has given me and everyone in this room the access to have the fastest servers in the world to produce data, whether it lands on Google, a great plus, but even just to access it. So that will look in that platform. I can access each of those collections by some type of naming convention. All that will be published soon enough for us to see.
And via Maps API, right? So even if you wanted to render it in your own embeds as well, you can do that as well. So that is available in the contribution panel for you, the contributor, and also if you transfer the rights, it's accessible to the merchant that you've reassigned the rights to.
And currently, when we transfer those rights, they will see that in their personal Street View, or they will see that in their...
It is public at that time. So both you and the recipient of the transferred imagery both have a public copy of that imagery. Only the recipient's imagery is indexed, meaning that it is actively discoverable by browsing the map, but it will be accessible through either of your public profiles in the Google Maps and Street View app.
So at that point, they can delete should they want, and we can still modify because we have a connection with it as well to help
Correct.
them?
What you modify, at that point, it's a branch. At that point, if you start modifying your connectivity or you delete it, it will have no impact on theirs.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, let's get you.
Hi, this is Leorith from India. I wanted to know the changes that you mentioned in the Street View app, the floors, and there were two questions actually. When is it launching? When is it upgrading? Also the auto mode that we spoke about yesterday, when is it launching?
So it's separate questions
Yes.
for floors. Okay,
Yes.
so to clarify, floors are not coming to the Street View app in any immediate time frame. We have no plans on deck right now to add floors to the Street View app. Floors are coming to the Street View API, and consequently, all of our partners. I'm just going to stare you guys in the eyes right now so that you integrate floors soon. No, I know you're going to. You've been asking me like every day for the past couple months, so I know you will. So we're planning to launch floor support in the Street View Publish API within weeks. We're very close to making that happen. It's literally the #1 feature request from all of our software integrators. Regarding driving mode in the Street View app, that will launch a couple of weeks after we receive compatible hardware from all of the other folks that I should stare in the eye in this room. We just need an opportunity to test it and be comfortable with launching the app.
Because we only need a few weeks to do that.
But
this is how PMs put pressure on engineers. We make live announcements.
But we're definitely targeting this summer.
Yeah, so that's a direct appeal to Insta360, NCTech, and the other partners that we have here, SphereCam and Zcam. As soon as we get the hardware from you, then we start the clock ticking. We won't say how long, but we're certainly targeting, right around the middle of the year, hopefully, to have some of these out in your hands. Thank you. Another question here.
I have another question about connectivity. Like I've been beta testing with Thomas with GNOME software, and it is possible right now to have like panoramas linked together that are linked to different businesses. Is this intended, or is it digital hijacking? So you could kind of have it linked to a branch store in a different district or city?
You can only assign 360 photos. The only ability is to assign to a single business. But I think you're referring to connectivity, and you could have two businesses that had a dynamic connection between them, and we're eliminating those.
My understanding was the question was what happens when somebody takes a bunch of pictures at one location and then clones those and uploads them to every single branch.
Oh.
Was that your question?
No, actually, like
I guess we should
like
answer that question
like
too.
with Thomas, we tried out. You could like do one store, like one place.
Yeah.
Link all to those together, and then maybe you have 3 panoramas from a different place, and you can link those together. That's like you answered this that you would delete it, but right now it's possible to kind of have
it is today that they might link
links
to one another. So we
like space warping.
Mixing businesses or mixing places.
Stafford showed that you might jump out of a window into
you come from Tokyo to Paris.
Yeah, that's well. So that should never happen unless a contributor is intentionally creating those connections. What Google has done in the past unintentionally is created dynamic connections between spatially adjacent businesses. But between Tokyo to Japan, I wouldn't even think that's possible. But if it's possible, it wasn't by our doing.
Well, I mean, yeah, you could say, I want to connect these 2 photos, and we try to filter that out.
Yeah, because we have a policy that says that you have to be able to maintain a line of sight between any connections that you create. So Tokyo to Japan would violate that policy.
Tokyo to Paris.
Tokyo to Paris.
Yeah, right.
Yes, thanks.
Sorry,
I don't know geography. I don't.
Wait, there was you said you wanted to elaborate on something.
Oh yeah, I guess since I misunderstood the question, we should answer it anyway, which is what happens if you upload the same pano to multiple sites. I'm acting like the interviewer to ask you.
Well, so this would come back to policy. Your imagery has to accurately reflect a place. So there is a major big box retailer that will remain unnamed that does stores that look identical to one another. And they asked the same question, why do we have to shoot 270 360 photos at each location? And the answer is, as long as the stores are visually indistinguishable, you don't have to. But as soon as the layout's changing visibly, then you would be required to actually shoot differently for each one. Another question?
Can we get a microphone up here?
Thank you.
I think I already know the answer, but I really hope I'm wrong. About the API, will we ever be able to edit previous tours, or just the ones that, or maybe if you have, I have an account with Panoskin and one with Go Through, will I be able to pull that pull up and then edit and go back?
That is up to the software partners to provide that functionality.
Are you talking about the stuff like from before we turned down the Street View editor, or?
Both, from different publishers, different software developers, and from previous tours we published with the editor or maybe with the app.
So there's kind of like the real world implications answer, and then there's the technical answer, and I'll try to address both really quickly. So the technically, you cannot modify the pixels of a published 360 photo and have it be the same file. That's not possible. We'll let you change the connections, we'll let you, move it around. There's some things that you can do. But in real world impact, if there was an image that you didn't like and it was part of a connected tour, as Stafford was referencing, these new third-party editors should give you the ability to essentially make a change, but what that's doing is it's deleting the old image and it's putting a new one up in its place.
That will break any links or embeds that you have to that specific image, so be careful of that.
Yeah,
but as far as the question of, if you want to modify locations or connections or rotations, any metadata associated with the tour, that's totally possible with the API, I'm almost certain that some of our software partners permit that. If Thomas says that he does. I don't know if anyone else wants to give me a thumbs up. Alan says that he does as well. Yeah, what about the LCP folks?
Folks on the video won't be able to hear.
So
you mind grabbing the mic?
LCP just said that they are working on an import tool as well.
I was just going to say that we are working on an import tool. And one of the API requests that we had is to be able to search by place ID, just to make it a little bit more efficient. Because I know that with some of the searches, it's a little bit hard to find that actual location. So it is coming soon.
I think we just made that possible, but we'll check.
I also wanted to, well, very hesitantly add, because I don't like giving myself more work, but we have discussed adding blurs to your photos after you publish them, because we don't let you do that right now.
It's something you would optionally do, not that we would just.
Right. Yeah, so like where you would say, I want to blur like this face, or I want to just blur this building, or whatever. So it's something that we've talked about, and I think realistically we should support it. Just we're not ready to do that yet.
I think that I'm just going to try to put a cap on this subject. One of the really exciting things about building all of this auto mode functionality on top of the API is that even though there are a lot of things that we wish we could provide at launch, and we're not going to provide those things at launch, like blurring, because our software partners can build upload functionality for vehicle-driven collects, the software partners can provide these additional tools that we will be lacking on the Street View infrastructure side at launch. Like, for example, there are lots of libraries available for face detection that you could use as a software partner to perform blurring prior to upload, right? You can't modify the pixels once they're with us, but you could do this sort of thing. If your clients demanded something like auto detection of faces and plates and blurring them, then you could provide that functionality yourself for now.
And if all of you do it, then we won't.
Okay, so everybody get together and do it so we don't have to. That's great. Yes.
Now, I'm so excited to see all of the different software that's been developed already.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what happens when we give you the tools to do driving as well.
Any other questions?
Just a follow-up on exchanging or updating the metadata. You said the image will be kind of disappearing if I update the metadata?
No. Perhaps I misspoke.
No.
You can update the metadata at any time and without doing anything
so
to
if
the
you do if I do a relink, like if I forgot something and I re-upload
Totally
it,
fine.
then the numbers are
It's
not.
only if you want to change the visuals.
The pixels.
The pixels are the backbone
Maybe this was my
of that.
misunderstanding. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, there's another one here.
Previously, for each business, there was there was a knowledge box, including the map of the business, the location, see inside, and the photos. Now the see inside section is gone, but the photos only are able, in the knowledge box, are able to only show the still photos, not the 360. We publish for businesses that they don't have any still image, and when you look at their knowledge box, even though they have more than 50 or 60 panels, but there is only map in their knowledge box. Is there any plan to?
Yeah,
we need to get.
No, I know that's in the works, right? So I'm actually kind of surprised that that's not already in place, but that is definitely coming. We treat all the imagery. It's our intention to treat all the imagery equally, regardless of 360 or not.
Yes.
And so, one, I would just say there's a possibility that the imagery didn't score high enough. But if that's not the case, then it sounds like it's one of those cases where this is imminent.
At the moment, the image that appears in the photo section in the knowledge box is only for the still images, it's not for the 360 ones.
Well, that will change. There's another question in the back, please.
Hey guys, what about as far as the analytics on the Google dashboard for the business listing? Do you guys plan on separating out the analytics between photography and 360 photography?
I don't know of any specific plans on analytics, but I can tell you, generally speaking, we're trying not to distinguish, just broadly speaking. And I defer to Jackie if you have thought or Stafford.
No plans.
Generally, we're just trying to treat it as imagery.
I will say that from the photographer perspective, rather than the business perspective, we have been making changes pretty much every other release lately to the stats in the Street View app. I know that those aren't the stats that you're talking about, but I'm going to take this opportunity to plug the new stats dashboard in the Street View app.
Good.
Nice. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to count down to 3, 2, 1. And okay, I think let's call it, right? So we can all go celebrate in the back of the room. Thank you all. This has been, I know, exhausting, but it's been a delight to share in this with you guys. And I look forward to a year from now looking back on this as a really pivotal moment for the industry.
Can we get another round of applause for all of our presenters yesterday and today?
Thank you.